Hey everyone, Tom here from Cerulean Bay, and today we are back with a really cool topic. This one has to do with AI generated imagery in interior design. And before we kick off, I just want to say that there are some very good tools out there that can really help you if you are shopping for things like new flooring or maybe some new furniture, where you go to a retailer's site online and they've got a tool where you can upload a particular picture, an image of your living room or your entryway or wherever you think you are going to be putting in some new flooring or some new furnishings. And the tool will actually look at your flooring or the space and wipe out what's needed as a background. And then you can go ahead and replace that with whatever pieces that you're shopping for. Like for flooring, it'll go ahead and erase the floor. And then you can upload things like a really cool kind of a golden bamboo type of wood flooring, or you could try maple, which is maybe in a tan color or kind of like a nice reddishy kind of brown. And they also have mahogany in there, just a lot of colors that you can experiment with mahogany being one of the really dark ones. And what's cool is then you've got the picture with all of your furnishings in there with the new flooring underneath, and at least it gives you an idea of what something would look like. Now, the big caveat with that is obviously screen resolutions and color tones. When you see a real product in the store, it's going to look really different than the wood samples and the stone samples that they're going to have for sale online, just like they would for furnishings as well. Fabric samples always look different in real life. So I always recommend, if you can, for high dollar items like that, to go to the store to see what you can in person. And that will just help to save you a lot of time and money and grief and all of that. So what I wanted to get into today is when it comes to inspiration. When you're getting online and looking for imagery that could really help you out in a particular space in your home, especially if you are trying to create a tropical escape. For some reason, the tropics and anything tropical online has just been inundated with AI imagery. Some of it is just horrible, and other imagery is actually not that bad. I think AI is getting to a point where it is competing with actual photography pretty closely, which I personally find to be pretty sad, because I'm a big fan of good photographers and people who really know what they're doing with photography. And for people who are out there now creating AI generated images and trying to pass that off as some sort of real photograph, I think is just sad and unfortunate, but it's happening. And that's one of the things I want to point out for you today with some examples that I have here, because a lot of what I'm finding online when I look for images for blog posts or for video content, podcast inspiration, a lot of it is just useless. And I see things in there that are just wasting people's time and energy and money. And I think it's just a real shame when people are wasting time and money, because, you want to be efficient about this. You want to be able to get straight to the point. So yeah, I think it's important to understand what you're looking at with AI imagery. But so I can show you what I'm talking about here, let's go ahead and get into some examples so that you can see what's working and what's not working. So when I went ahead to Pinterest to see if I could find some new kitchen imagery for an old blog post that I did about tropical kitchens, it just kind of pulled up this random generic selection here of kind of old style kitchens, kind of old world looking. And as I started looking at each one of these, I just noticed that none of these are real. They're all AI generated. So just by putting in kitchen ideas into Pinterest, this is what you get. Now, some images are going to say AI modified here, but a lot of them don't. So I do think it's important that you know what you're looking for when you go into them. Some of them are horrible, like this one over here, and it's almost got a cartoonish look to it. When you look at the hardware here, none of it is the same. Look at this thing here that's just sticking out. Look at how all the cabinet doors are lining up right here. It just doesn't make sense. And then when you look at the cabinetry above, I guess there's a plant or something in here that's trying to break through. But the overall look of this is just very artificial. It's very flat. It's almost got like a matte-like finish, which is just strange. But yeah, I would love to see the original image here instead of the modified one, because maybe that one would have been more useful. But let's go ahead and take a look at another image. This one here, I think, is relatively useful when it comes to color palettes. And that's pretty much about it. Because when you are looking at placement ideas again, things are just way out of scale. Look at the size of the stool and then look at the size of the sink. I mean, the size of the sink is smaller than where you would sit down on the stool, which makes no sense at all. And AI just loves to place things randomly. So you've got like a little tapestry rug type thing hanging here on the wall. I don't know why something would be sticking out of it like this, hanging on the wall. There's some funky thing. I can't even tell what that is, where a plant's hanging from it. And then again, you've just got random hangings here, which make no sense. If you've got another little tapestry thing like this, which actually looks pretty cool, but then you look under it and you're like, well, what is this? It's like, if this is layered on top of something else, whatever's underneath it is just kind of collapsing away, just kind of disappearing there, which again makes no sense. The overall image here just kind of has that whole flat look on it. AI places plants where they don't belong and in front of an area where you would need to have access to some things. Again, it says it's AI modified, but why? What's the purpose? This is completely useless in terms of inspiration unless you have a little kitchen area in a greenhouse or some kind of garden shop. Nobody is going to have this many plants on such a small, limited counter space. So, again, totally useless image here. I think this is an absolute nightmare, this picture. First of all, unless you live somewhere in Europe in a home that is like 500 or 600 years old, and I've seen some of these things where I lived in Switzerland and I've toured some places in Italy. Yeah, you've got places that could resemble this, but what is going on with the front of this range right here? Makes no sense what any of this stuff is. This is just a frightening vent hood. It would look like it would suck the whole stove up there and take it away, maybe where it belongs somewhere else. But again, it's just something that doesn't make sense with a random light sticking out of the stone here. AI loves to have a lot of hanging things. So to me, this is not helpful at all. If somebody was looking for some inspiration under some really cool, bulky, heavy wood shelves, this is useless in terms of inspiration. So again, not a good image to use. This here was one of my favorites because I've also got a blog post about tropical bathrooms. And it's just another space that when you're trying to find things, you're like, what is this? And actually, there were some comments on Pinterest where people really loved this image and they're like, oh, this is just wonderful. And oh, I wish I could do this at home. It's like, really? How many people want to hang pictures in the shower? How many people are going to put a shelf with little tchotchkes and books and things like this in the shower? There's light bulbs here, which I don't know if it's supposed to be a reflection on the glass or what that is, but that makes no sense. It's just another silly AI generated image, which, okay, maybe could give you some color inspiration for some green tile if you were looking at redoing a shower and you wanted that. It's just an odd picture, very, very strange. This is another one too, which just really caught my attention. I'd be terrified to get into that shower with this thing hanging over my head. I mean, what kind of rainhead shower piece is this? The regular shower faucet is bent at a really weird angle in here. You've got what could be a decent sconce type lamp on the wall. This one, I don't think it really knows where it's supposed to be. And then you've just got this really weird reflection when there's no mirror going on over here. So again, for color inspiration, this could be cool. If you've got this kind of color scheme going on in your bathroom, maybe that's all this is worth. So if you are looking for some good color inspiration, yeah, you could come up with a decent color palette out of all of this. But again, it just doesn't really make sense. I mean, look at the artwork on the ceiling. It's not even the same design being repeated here. And you've got this light that's just in a really weird placement. Down here on the floor, I don't know what that little guy is there, but again, it's just something where you can see here too, AI is not good with textures. It is not good with pattern repetition. If you were really trying to get a true sense of what a bathroom would look like with this kind of flooring, this is going to screw it up right here. It's just, again, not a very good image. Let's go ahead and move on to another one. Now, this one here, we're getting into the less cartoonish. I had to put a little reminder up here in how I named the image, but this one is not as bad when it comes to quality. I'm thinking that maybe some sort of a photo was used and then it was somehow altered with AI. Again, I am not the expert with how AI is generated, but I do know a bad picture when I see it. And here you've got a bad one because if you've got the sink right in here, how is this drawer supposed to close? This makes absolutely no sense. I could see if you had a faux drawer, which a lot of homes have. I have one here in my house. Mine actually flips out a little bit and you can put some utility sponges and things like that. But I have a drop down sink like this as well. So there's no way that a drawer would ever fit, let alone something like this. So again, this to me just gives false expectations. It gives false impressions to people who are looking at what otherwise could be a beautiful kitchen with the way the stonework is done. Awesome countertops here, great cabinetry if you like this kind of color with this kind of, wood texture. But this is crazy right here. This is not feasibly possible. So yeah, be very, very careful when you are looking at AI imagery. And then the last one here I have is another one that's less cartoonish. This one actually looks really, really cool. It's on the deceiving side, I would think. If you love live edge stone or wood like I do, I think this is very, very cool. But where this one falls down is the pot filler is not centered over the stove where most of them would go. I'm not saying they should always be over the stove. I have one here at home. It is over the stove where it belongs. And then you just look at the knobs to the stove. I'm not quite sure what this is over here. But again, this is just an interruption in design flow if you're trying to get inspiration. And when you're looking at the surface of the counter, this sink is way out of scale. So it's just way too small. That's something else that you've just got to look for. And I think images like this don't help people because if you are tight on space or you're trying to maximize your counter space and you're looking at this and you're like, wow, I could really get a lot of cool counter space with an image like this. Not if you're going to have a full-size sink. This sink should be a lot larger than it is, especially when you look at it in relation to this little bar stool, this little bench seating that's right here. So again, be very careful when you are looking at AI imagery. So now what I want to do is show you one last awful example of AI because it has something to do with a topic that I'm researching. And part of that has to do with what would a stove look like if it was placed right under a window. And this takes me back to my realtor days because I do remember when I was showing some houses back there that different houses have different layouts, different formats, and you would see a cooktop that is placed literally directly in front of a window. There's no vent hood there. It's got a beautiful view outside. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. Kind of odd when it comes to cooking though, because cleaning the windows must be a nightmare when you are using a grill pan or you're just frying anything and stuff is splattering. And so anyways, a cleaning nightmare there. So while having a stove or cooktop right under a window might sound kind of strange to some people, others like it. I've seen it. It kind of works. And it just made me think, what if there were some other cool window placements, just kind of some other ways to create a view in a house that you normally wouldn't have, trying to just kind of get away from that traditional thing where you've got the big picture windows in the living room, or maybe there's your traditional window placement in the kitchen. But with this, it was unusual. And I thought, maybe I could find some other instances of windows being placed where you normally wouldn't put them if you've got a great view to capture outside. So while I was looking for this imagery, of course, everything that was coming up was just the silly AI generated imagery. It made no sense half of the time. And what did make sense, I couldn't use because it just looked fake. The only real imagery that was coming up was of your traditional placements with a stove and a vent hood above it, no window behind it, really cool backsplashes and things like that. But I wanted a window. And it just made me think, surely this must exist. Well, apparently it doesn't, because after I kept searching, everything coming up was just AI stuff. So I thought, you know what? When I came across this image, it was just too good to not share. It is the only one I found where I have my stove. It's not under the window, but it's next to it. So with everything else that's wrong in here, this is our one last trip through an AI nightmare. Here you will see there is a nice window and it is over the sink, but look at the stove, look at the draperies here. You've got draperies hanging right onto the stove. What a lovely way to set your kitchen on fire. You've got a pot on here or a vase or something with a plant in it that doesn't belong. The faucet here has some little piping or whatever that's going crazy. And how nice. It's a luxury kitchen because you have two sinks. So I'm not sure how many of you out there have two big farmhouse sinks in your kitchen, but this one too has some really wonky faucet stuff going on. It must have a massive island because this seats 6 on this side and you've got 3 right here. absolutely ginormous kitchen. And if you try to make sense of the chair legs and everything and just make sure that everything is where it should be, you will give yourself a headache. I also noticed up here there's an extra wood beam, and how this big rack thing is hung. You can clearly see it's hung from this beam, but I'm not sure where it's hung over here, if you see that. And of course, there's your usual AI clutter, which doesn't make any sense up in this rack. And so there you have it. This is your train wreck farmhouse kitchen. So with this, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to have to take a break from looking and see if I can find inspiration somewhere else. So, after having spent a lot of time looking at imagery that was a lot like the Trainwreck Farmhouse kitchen, I thought, you know what, I'm just giving up on this for now. And so my wife and I, we went to go sit down to watch some TV, and we were flipping around on there, and we came across that movie Fatal Attraction from 1987. And we thought, why not? It's been years since we've seen that. And so we're watching the movie, and lo and behold, I found the imagery that I needed. It was perfect. Now, without going into any detail about what this scene is about, especially for those who have not seen the movie, and I don't do spoilers, and I do have to say that the subject matter of this movie is outside of the scope of this show. So I am only using this image because it clearly shows a stove in front of a window. And even though there are some curtains here, which I'm not a big, huge fan of, I think the concept is very, very interesting given what I've seen in other homes. And here you can see that if you have a really cool view outside, this would actually kind of be a cool setup to have. I think if you only have one exterior wall and maybe you only have one window above the sink, you probably have a pretty dark kitchen. And if you do have a setup where there is a stove next to a sink and you don't have an overhead vent hood, why not put in a window where you can? I do still think it's a little bit odd when it comes to the cleaning, though, because if you get that grill pan going, you're frying, you're doing whatever you're doing, and things are just splattering all over the place. I just kind of see all of this up here getting kind of dirty. We see Beth standing here, but I'm wondering why the window was not fully extended over the sink. But what you do is take what you have to work with. So even though this scene takes place out in the country, away from the city, it looks like when you watch the movie that it was shot in a real house. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a movie set. I don't know. But my point with this is someone came up with this concept of having the stove in the window. And even if it was a set designer, maybe it was an interior designer, the thing is, someone thought of it, they used it, and it worked. And so that means the concept does exist. And if you have the architectural setup where you can do something like this and it is something you want to do, go ahead and do it. Even if it's not the norm, most people, again, they have their stove placed up against a wall. You've got the vent hood above it, and it's just kind of your traditional thing. But as I mentioned earlier, the topic that I'm researching is for window placements where you wouldn't normally find them. They actually can be a pretty cool thing. So having said that, let's take a look at the next picture here. This one here is before Beth entered the kitchen. And again, I wish it had a full shot of the window because I would like to see how far it goes over. But you can see that there is no vent hood arrangement up here. If there were, it would totally block the window, which wouldn't make sense. And then you would just have some little useless window here, which would probably be dirty all the time. So with something like this, I probably wouldn't have any curtains in the window. If you wanted some kind of a window treatment, maybe just have some blinds at the top that either roll down or pull down if you need privacy at nighttime there. But a setup like this works. I do recommend having some kind of ventilation. Here you can see Beth and Dan have a very retro vintage kitchen and bathroom fan above their stove, which hopefully does the job. But you do need to have something there. And I guess it does help too, now that I think of it, if you can open the window and you've got something really going on here that you can just blow outside by having the windows open, that would be pretty cool too. But yeah, having this arrangement, I think, is inspirational. It kind of gives some ideas, again, subtracting out what this movie is about. But it was a very unusual scene. And when I noticed it, I hit pause and I'm like, that's it. That's the image that I want. So there you have it. Now that I have my kitchen shot there, I am going to continue my search online to find some other rooms and some other interesting ideas, maybe about where windows typically are not found. I do think it is a very cool concept, and it could help to make your home very, very unique. And that just goes to show you a little bit more about me, is that when I find useful tips, it doesn't matter where they come from. If it is a real photo, or even if it's a still shot from a movie and it looks like that was something real, it's something useful, then I'm going to go ahead and use it. And all of this is just another reminder that inspiration can be found in some of the most unlikely places, such as this movie. So whenever I'm watching a movie or a particular show on TV, for those of you who know me, I love Frasier. I think that was just one of the best shows ever out there. But there's just inspiration. Sometimes I won't even look at the people who are in what I'm watching. I won't even listen to what they're saying. I'm looking at where they are. What are they doing in where they are? And just how can a particular space be used? I look at the art on the walls. I look at furniture placement. I look at just scenery. Even though a lot of them are studio sets and all of this, there's just inspiration to be had in some of the most unlikely places. So with that, I encourage you to just pay attention to the details whenever you're out there looking around, because you never know what you're going to miss. So I hope this episode today about AI imagery and inspiration was useful to you. If you liked the video, go ahead and click that like button. And if you've been liking what I've been putting out on this channel, I would love to earn a click on that subscribe button. That would really mean a lot to me. And I'm here to provide as much value as I can. Hopefully you guys are finding this information to be valuable. I've got a freebie for you down in the video notes, so you can click and get a free PDF about the 8 reasons why you need a tropical escape at home. A lot of great info in there. Again, it's free. It will sign you up for the Cabana Lounge newsletter. It is a weekly newsletter. It goes out every Monday morning, and there's no spam. I totally protect your information. Don't share it with anybody, and you can unsubscribe anytime you like. So with that, I want to give due credit to all of the makers of this film, Fatal Attraction, and I want to wish you all the most wonderful tropical inspiration this week, all the health and happiness out there. Stay safe, and we'll catch up again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.